Welcome to the Are You Being Real show. I am sitting with the one and only Suzy Batiz. Welcome to the show. So nice to meet you as well.
Nice to meet you. I'm excited.
Yeah, likewise. For everybody tuning in, if you haven't already heard of Suzy, she is an incredible and such an inspiring entrepreneur. And you are the inventor, the founder, and the CEO of Poo Pourri.
Yes.
And I'm so excited to talk to you for a number of reasons. I mean, I think like one reason is because of everything you've been through. You have such a real and relatable story. You've experienced the ups and downs of life, and certainly have put in your time to get to where you are today with Poo Pourri, a world-renowned company that's worth several hundred millions of dollars. And I know you at one point were bankrupt. So to build such twice bankrupt twice.
Let's not forget that first one.
Just an incredible, real journey. And I know you're a stand for openness and authenticity, trusting yourself. And you also have a product that is all about poo and covering up the smell of poo, a topic that probably most people would avoid, yet you're tackling the real. So what I like to do to open up these episodes, since this podcast is about being real, and I know we all are experiencing real things every single day, the good, bad, and ugly of life. And so I love having the guests open up with a story that's real for them, or that's something that you've been through. So we call them the Am I Being Real story, and I would love to invite you to share yours.
Let's see, a story that I can tell about being real. What's really fascinating, Mark, is I think I'm being real a lot until I find out later that I'm not being real at all, right? So it's really kind of funny. It's like, what level of real are we talking about here? Yeah. Because I trick myself a lot, into not being real. But I think one of the basic stories about me not being real was prior to my second bankruptcy, when I was 38, I didn't even know what real was. There was nothing in my life that I didn't even stop to feel into my heart about what do I want, what's my passion. Everybody now is talking about purpose. Mm-hmm. Back then, I didn't even know what purpose was. Like, I was just surviving. So when we talk about being real, I wasn't being real to my own purpose and my own heart, but I was being real to surviving in the world and getting what I thought was going to give me something, which was once I became successful, then I was going to be happy, or I was going to be rich, or I was going to, I would be successful, and then I would be worthy in the world and be valued or something. So that was real to me at a point, but it was very unreal as far as my own personal mission and desires of my heart. Does that make sense? Totally.
So what I'm hearing you say is, you mentioned that there are different levels of real.
Yes.
So I think from what I heard is that on the deepest level, you might not have been in touch or even looking at what you truly desired most.
No, I didn't even know that was an option.
Right. No. I actually didn't know that either.
I was doing what you're supposed to do, right? You're supposed to make it. You're supposed to hustle. You're supposed to get ahead. And I had a gazillion businesses. I was always, lots failed and lots won, but you push through, you make it happen, and you go.
Yeah.
And I thought I was being really real.
Yeah.
And I was. And then when my second bankruptcy happened in 2001, when the stock market crashed, I always say it's the luxury of losing everything. Everything was just wiped clean. And once I had that clean slate, I was just like, oh my God, what do I even want? What? I know I can lose everything now. Again, this happened to me twice. When I was 19, I was 38. Wow. It's like, so what about, am I going to be able to have fun? Am I going to be able to do anything that I want to do? What about me in all of this? Just to face that I had spent 38 years of my life, my adult years, 20 years of my life, chasing and pursuing things that I didn't even really want to do anyway, but I thought were going to get me something, to find out that I was left with really nothing. And I mean nothing in that, whenever let's say that you fail, let's say this podcast fails for you, I'm sure it was born of your heart and you've never lost, right? So that's real.
Totally.
But whenever you're not pursuing something from something that's deep inside of you, like from your heart, and then you lose everything, you don't have anything. Like, I was just like, man, so I got to so shit got real fast. Okay. Because then I had no money. I had no job, I had no career. I didn't have a house. I didn't have my cars, everything was wiped clean. And I was literally sitting and facing myself.
At 38.
At 38. And the hardest thing to do, I think, is to face yourself. You want to talk about get real?
Yeah.
Like, I can get real with you, it's fine. But put that mirror up and get real with yourself.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck have you been doing? Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you doing it? That's what I had to face. And it was, dude, that is not fun, and it was the best journey I've ever been on in my life because I got to really dig deep inside myself. And I was like,
what'd you see?
God, I saw that I overrode, I sold out. I did things the way everybody I was supposed to do. And I didn't do a single thing for me that I wanted to do. I really didn't. Like I said, I didn't even know it was an option. And
what would have those things been at the time?
What would have?
You said you weren't doing things that you wanted to do. You were kind of...
Well, yeah. So I'll tell you a story. This is when I was 18, this was in 1982, flashback. Guess jeans were in style, little straight leg jeans and pumps, right? And the girls all wore, you probably saw them in the 80s movies, the girls all wore these matching pumps with jeans. And I had this idea that I wanted to make a pair of denim pumps because I didn't have the money to have all these different colored pumps. Because, you wore like the lavender pumps with the lavender sweater, like that was the style back then. And I thought, why aren't there denim pumps? So my boyfriend at the time's aunt worked at a shoe factory. So I drew up this diagram for a pair of shoes, and I cut up a pair of jeans and I sent them to her, and she made me a pair of pumps. And it was in a little town in Arkansas, the shoe factory. And I wore them around and I was so excited. Everybody loved them. So I called Guess in New York and I said, I designed this pair of shoes. And, they're out of Guess jeans and they match the jeans, and how cool is this? And they said they were coming out with a shoe line, and they were coming out with a shoe line for me to fly to New York to see them. And I go tell my mom, oh my gosh, Guess wants to see me. And she said, you can't go to New York. And I said, why? And she said, you're just a little girl from Arkansas. Like, they're going to chew you up and spit you out. And just like, I was crushed, but I knew somehow the realness was it touched into a part of me, that small part of me, that I agreed with her. And I said, you know what, you're right, I can't go. So the irony of that story is that, of course, Guess came out with a denim shoe a couple of years later, right? Of course. And, but what I really wanted to do was to be a fashion designer. So I didn't even know that existed. I grew up in Arkansas. Like, that wasn't, when I went to college for my year, that wasn't on the roster. I'd never known anyone that had been a fashion designer. I didn't even know there was a school for fashion design. So I went into accounting, and then that was awful. So I went to psychology the next semester and then dropped out of college. But that's what I really wanted to do, was something that was creative and fashion oriented. So I bought a bridal salon when I was 19. I was like, well, that's for sale. Okay, let's do that. And that was my first bankruptcy. So I would always chase these things that were out beyond myself, but that I thought were going to get me to a place that was an inside feeling that I wanted all along, which was really just doing whatever turns me on and is alive and following creative expression and flow. But I didn't know that back then. I was like, oh, okay, I can't do that, so I'll do this because it makes sense, right? The bridal salon's for sale. I can maybe make this work. And I didn't. So I was following things from a inauthentic place in myself, right? And then my heart the whole time is just, so I feel like I'm going to probably cry right now, just thinking, like, spending 20 years like that, when what I really wanted to do was just make shit. That's it. I wanted to make shit that turned me on. I wanted to create, Yeah. So instead, I just kept buying stuff and trying to make it work, and nothing worked.
Thank you so much for sharing. I can certainly relate in a lot of different ways, in feeling like I did what was expected of me for so many years of my life, and then finding myself at 31 and divorced, being like, what the hell what am I doing with my life? Like, I feel like I've wasted all of this time. What do I have to show for it? And then I also, find myself doing my best and, putting my heart out there and sometimes not getting the results that I seek. So I'm so inspired by your story because you have followed this path of what turns you on. Yes. And it not only has worked for you, but it works.
It works. Yeah.
It works. I mean, I think any way you look at it, there's probably ways that I can't see that you probably still wake up and have challenges within your business and things that come up
every day.
But from an external point of view, it certainly looks, oh, wow, you're following your heart. You're doing a really cool project that's really fun. And you brought light to a topic that people looked away from, the smell of poo. And it's, $100 million business plus. So that's really, really inspiring. Yeah. So a bunch of questions just kind of came up to me as you were speaking, because I think it's a pretty common thing in America where people feel like I got bills to pay or I've got kids and I can't do what I've always wanted to do. So I just get a job that will be good enough. And, a lot of the times, like just before our interview today, I was talking to someone who worked at Showtime, where I worked in the cable and television business for 11 years. And he's like, yep, I'm still there. He's like, I know it someday it'll be my time to go and they'll lay me off essentially, but I'm just kind of riding the wave. I've got a kid. I don't want to take the risks. It's, it's good enough. Yeah. So I'm kind of curious to know, what your take is on that, on kind of a, on like a level-headed as well as kind of like a spiritual level.
Yeah. Whenever I hear the word like ride the wave, I just think that that's not true. I believe that yes, you have a kid, and it's that preconception of what I think I have to give that kid in order for that kid to have a great life. Mm-hmm. He has to be wearing the greatest clothes. He has to, oh my God, I've seen LA birthday parties. Are you kidding me? Like, that's a lot to keep up with, right? Like, is that really what my child needs? Or does my child need an example? Had I known what I know now, I would have known my children. I would have rather shown my children what following my heart looks like and us making it than what it looks like to sell out. Mm-hmm. And I sold out. So, yeah, what wave is he riding? Mm-hmm. Is that a wave you want to be riding? And it can all be gone in a second. And that's what I knew after my second bankruptcy. What I knew is, like, I can lose all of this. And what's worse than losing it all is realizing you didn't even have a good time and you weren't following your heart. And I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I'm only going to do what turns me on, period. And the funny thing about that is if you can take that leap into really, really what turns you on, until you wait till you get that alive idea and start doing it, it will work. Yeah. It has to, because the idea is alive. When that idea with you come together, it's like a child, right? So you could say, I birthed this child and I don't know if it's successful or not. Well, it is. It's alive. It's breathing. And the more you focus on that child, right? And its interests and desires and love, the way you do with an idea, this podcast, talk about getting real, like get real. What's the podcast need, right? What is this thing that you're doing need? Not what does the world want, but what does it need to grow and thrive and survive? That to me is what is alive. So that's a wave I want to be riding, rather than a wave of this success that I have or this money. I get into that all the time. I'm like, oh, the company's only worth 500 or 600 million. You're not anything until you're a billion, right? These markers keep going up. Yeah. And I'm like, what is that? Yeah. Right? It's like, hold on. It's like looking at your kid going, you're not good enough because you're not the star football player. You just like playing football. Like, come on.
Yeah.
So really, it's like me getting real and keeping in touch with that groove and that aliveness. It's like, what is the business need? What does Poo Pourri need for her own aliveness in the world? What do I need within that container to bring myself alive? And is that good enough right now in this moment?
Wow.
Period. And if it's not, then what am I doing? Mm-hmm. It's like, what am I doing and why am I doing it? Because I've chased that stuff before and I'm just not willing to do it anymore.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I thought about and what people will tell me, like when I am having a conversation with them about being real and living an authentic life, they'll be like, well, I can't just do whatever I want all the time because then there won't be any money. Like we live in the, real world. And so I can't always follow my highest excitement. It's like, like I've heard people say, follow your highest excitement, or, follow your highest excitement while taking the next, tangible step. Follow your highest excitement without jumping off a cliff per se. So I agree with that. So I'm curious to kind of hear what your take is within the reason of like what turns you on in terms of what's a smart move as well. Because I'm guessing that part of your system of checking in with yourself is tied to your intuition, but there's probably, we do live in a world with other people and with consequences to our actions. So I'm curious to know kind of how that all fits together.
Yeah, it's very complex. And I'll tell you, I'm still in training. That's the truth. It's like, some days I'm like a ninja, and then other days I'm like, what did I just do? So it's an evolution. But I think that basically it's my experience. Let's go back to the wave analogy. It's like, how like when you surf and you catch, when you catch that wave, not that I've surfed that much, but I have, and you get on the wave, right? And you get it and you're on that wave. That's what I'm looking for when I talk about what brings me most alive. I'm looking and I'm waiting, just like a surfer. A surfer doesn't start making waves, right? Mm-hmm. What do? You wait out there and you wait and wait and wait. But then when a wave comes, when that moment of inspiration, that's when you paddle like hell to keep up on it and to surf. So can you follow your highest excitement all the time? I believe you can. I know people who do that. Mm-hmm. And that is master level faith and trust. And I know it can happen. I'm not there. So what I do is I wait for those moments of inspiration where I am turned on, I'm alive, and then I paddle like hell. Mm-hmm. It's like, you know what, man, this is alive. Yeah. And what I do, just like any master of anything, then I try to stay on top of that wave by tuning in. Hold on, something's not feeling right. What is it? I've got this big scary project I'm working on right now outside of Poo Pourri. Yep. And I just called this team. I've got all the top game designers in the world, and I've got all these people involved. And I was like it's I've lost it. Like something happened. Mm-hmm. We've lost it. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I'm gonna have to put the project on hold. Like this it's just not here anymore. Mm-hmm. And then one of the people on the team called, and she had an idea, and I get chills up my arm, and I'm like, oh, we're back on. Do you see? Yep. So it's literally like this on and off movement of just going, hold on, that doesn't feel alive. Okay, let me wait and wait and wait. Oh, hold on, this is it. And then when it's it, I grab back in, and that's when I start going again. Does that sound too?
I love it. No, I love that because I can certainly relate to that as it pertains to this podcast, where I'll feel like I'll have a lot of momentum, or it could be even something as small as there's a week where I want to dedicate the whole week to the podcast. Yeah. And then there'll be weeks when I am focused on the app that I'm building, Love Bomb, and I'll kind of ride the wave between the two. And it's all in the way that I choose to look at it, right? So I could look at it in the sense where I'm riding one wave of passion and inspiration and aliveness, and then when that one kind of starts slowing down, I'm going to ride the other wave. Yes. Somebody else could easily tell me, well, if you're focused on two different things, you're not really giving one of them the best chance. So I think like there's a lot of different ways to look at it. And that's something that I'm finding in my own personal dance right now, is the balance with that. And then how other people's feedback and, other people's mirrors, what they think I should do, how I interact with that? Because I think in one regard, a colleague can help reignite a spark within you, like the example that you gave. And then on the flip side, if I'm listening too much, like the example you gave with your mom, you might not follow your dream or your truth.
Yeah, you would.
So I think it is that it's that balance between the two.
The difference is what lit up inside of me. Do you see? With my mom, I wasn't lit up. I was like, you know, and with my colleague, it's like, oh, hold on, that's it. Like and I notice my energy level.
Yeah.
And what I have a commitment to is staying at the highest vibration that I can, because I know that if right now, I just have a heart, who knows, that I've lived a great life, man. I have. Like, I could just cry thinking about it, just being so grateful. It's like, I have a great time. Yeah. And there's been projects that worked out. There's projects that don't. I will tell you, the ones that work out the most are the ones that I continue riding that wave with. 100%. But I know, generally speaking, I'm playing the game of life. But the interesting thing is, used to, life played me. Now I'm playing the game of life. When as a matter of fact, that's what I want to call my project. But whenever I am engaged and I'm riding those waves, I'm a co-creator within it. For example, Poo Pourri, there's I've never had a business plan. I still don't have one. Like, none. Because how do you have a business plan for a kid? Right? I mean, you can think you have a business plan. Right. He's going to grow up and he's going to do this and he's going to be a famous gymnast. And
they're going to still do whatever they want to do.
Yeah, all of a sudden they pick up a pan and start drumming. You're like, oh, he's a drummer. Like, who knew? That's the way I believe businesses are. I believe that these projects that we have, we can start off with one concept, an impulse. But then as it morphs and takes on a life of its own, and as you start supporting it, you're like, oh, that wasn't even what I thought it was to begin with. So how can I continue going forward with this? And if you do, you're actually co-creating, right? The business isn't creating you. You're not creating it. You are literally growing together inside. So it's literally like me and the business are just, grooving. Right?
I like the way that you approach it in terms of the business being its own living organism, which in that way, I know for me, then I'm not over-identifying with the business.
Yeah, it's its own thing.
It's its own thing.
You're a caretaker.
Yeah.
Yeah, you decide to birth it.
Yep.
It's just like a child.
Yep.
How can I take care of it best?
Love it.
Feed it, love it.
Expose it to new things.
Expose it to new things. Share it with the world, how great it is. Yeah. That's called marketing. It's like, look at my baby. Yeah. How many people want to show their babies off to the world? Yeah. Right? That's marketing. Yeah. Yeah, that's a natural impulse, just to show everybody how fantastic this thing that you birthed is.
Yeah. Few questions directly correlating with that. One of them, and I read, and I think a blog post, where you said you were addicted to hope before the second bankruptcy. And so I'm kind of curious as to how your definition of hope versus maybe faith. And I'm just kind of curious to dive a little bit deeper into that subject. And then I want to talk about stuff that turns you on.
Okay. Let's see. Hope. My mentor, Gay Hendricks, is the one who first told me, you're addicted to hope. And I said, okay. And I said, so how do I get off this addiction? And he said, well, I've had people, he's a, Stanford PhD psychologist.
He's incredible.
Yeah.
I love The Big Leap.
He's amazing. Yeah. You should have him on. He's a great guy. And he said, I've got people off heroin in a few days. He said, sometimes it takes years to get off hope. And then I really started looking at what he was talking about hope, and what he's really referring to, and what I've identified with, is denial. For example, I can't pay my bills this month. Well, you know what? I'm going to read Abraham Hicks, and I'm going to manifest that money coming to my door. That could happen. Miracles can happen. But what happens is when my problem was, I would project out this false reality and pretend I wouldn't fully face reality and where I was. Like, I'm in a hellhole. Okay? If I truly identify with being in a shithole, number one, what am I going to do to get out? But what I would do is say, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Like, I'm going to get it. There's going to be another deal right around the corner. So that keeps this perpetual motion of not being real. So faith to me is, I have faith in my being. I have faith in me following energy. I have faith in what turns me on. That is faith. I have faith that I don't know what there is out there, but something's gotta be bigger than me, that because otherwise I don't know what I'm doing here. That to me is faith, where hope is someone's going to come save me. It's going to deliver me by the end of the month, the end of the year. If I get that I'm going to be something, and I don't truly face where I'm at. So it's denial. And I was in a lot of denial, a lot.
So on that point, I want to shift back to your story because it's so inspiring. And when I've listened to other podcasts you've been on, and I see this like pivotal, life-changing moment when you went bankrupt at 38 before you started Poo Pourri. And to me, when I look at it, and this from an external point of view, it seems like it was a shift within you which created the shift in then your reality and coming up with the idea of Poo Pourri and launching, business worth hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. So that turns me on, that idea, but I wanted to get your perception of that. And I also just curious, like, you're turned on by poo?
I wasn't turned on by poo. I was turned off by poo. Right? So I want to create something so I don't have to smell it. Yeah. So after my bankruptcy, I went into just really dark depression. I can't even tell you. Like, I literally was done. I wanted nothing to do with business. I didn't want to be alive. I tried to kill myself when I was 21. I knew I wasn't going to kill myself because I had a family, I had children, and I just would never be that irresponsible. When I was younger, it was just my life. It was fine. And, but I really didn't want to be here anymore. I was exhausted, beyond exhausted, and I was done. So I thought, okay, I'm not going to do that. I went to a hypnotist. And he said, your problem is you have no meaning in your life. I said, nah, what are you talking about? I have kids. I believe in God somewhat. I don't know. I have meaning. So he gave me the book, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. I don't know if you read it.
It's amazing.
Yeah. It's one of the first great books. And that gave me a little eyebrow lift. Like, I don't know. I still didn't know. And I still was just full of anger and just feeling a lot of anger and listening to Disturbed and painting in my house. Just like, what was wild for the first time in my life, Mark, I felt this, like, I felt rage. I felt anger. I had suppressed so much just trying to make it and trying to be perfect and trying to be happy. And like, I never stopped and felt. Fascinating to me now is it was a vibrational match to where I was in my within my being. And then my daughter had this acting. She was acting at the time, and I took her to an acting course. And there was a book in this bookshop that I was waiting for her in, and it was Byron Katie, and it was she was facing me, and it said "Loving What Is," and I was like, "Yeah, right." Like, yeah, right. And I'm going about my business and I keep looking. It's like that haunting thing. So I go and I pick up the book, and of course I devour it. And then, 2 weeks later, I'm at her 10-day course. And that was the pivotal shift, because prior to that, I had a big victim story. And it was a very valid victim story. My dad, bipolar alcoholic. My mom was depressed on pain pills. My first memory is cooking at 4 years old. I was molested by my stepfather. I was married at 19. I was bankrupt at 20. I was divorced at 21 and tried to kill myself when I was 21. I was in an abusive marriage. Like, I have every victim story that you pretty much can have, right? So I had proof. But that didn't bring me any freedom, because for me to be a victim, there had to be a perpetrator. And anyway, somehow when I started claiming some ownership is when I found an internal freedom. So I found that freedom within myself, and then I just had no desire for anything. I just sat. And I really sat for a few years. And I had a little interior design company, so I would work, 5 hours a week, enough to just make enough money for us to eat. But I had zero desire for anything other than just, yeah, we have apples today. We have rice. We have a little meat. Like I was truly for the first time in my life happy. And of course, I go to the dinner party and then my brother-in-law says, can bathroom odor be trapped? And that's when I became impregnated with this idea. Like I felt it. I don't think you've ever had children, but when you do, sometimes you can even feel the conception moment. Like you just know, oh shit, we just got pregnant, right? Yeah. Or, if you're planning it, it's hallelujah, but who knows? But I remember this moment of impregnation of just like, oh my God, I can do that. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I said, I work with oils. Like I can do this. And I felt the zing up my arm and everything kind of got high def, energy. And you have to remember, I didn't want it. I wanted nothing. I really didn't. I was happy. And the difference is that somehow this idea felt alive inside of me. So I was being pulled towards it. I wasn't chasing it. Like I literally was like up all night researching and mixing, and everybody thought I was crazy. So you know how many people run around and go, I have an idea. What do you think about it? And what do you think about it? And what do you think about it? I didn't do any of that. I didn't care. It's just like a new mother. I don't care whether you think I'm pregnant. I'm pregnant. I'm having a baby, right? And that's the way I felt. And I refer to birth a lot because that's my experience as a woman. It's very similar. So I had to create this. I had to birth this thing. I just knew it. I had no idea, no vision, no plan beyond. I didn't even know it was going to be a company. I know I can do this. So I mix and I mix and I mix. And then finally one day, my husband at the time walks out of the bathroom and says, oh my God, we're going to be millionaires. What are you talking about? Well, you've just cured the smell of shit. Like that's what you've done. I'm like, wow, okay. Then I just started then I had to package it. You got to dress the baby. You have to feed it. What do you do? And I literally, step by step by step, that's the way this business has been created.
Wow.
And people ask me all the time, like, what do I do next? I'm like, if I tell you how to get from A to B, you're going to need me to get to C and then D. And then, I was telling you that earlier. I'd rather tell you when you're in that flow, the universe and people around you, when you have a baby, trust me, you're going to call me and be like, oh my God, everybody's giving me baby advice. Everybody's going to tell you, you're like, it's crying. And everybody's like, oh, maybe it's hungry. Okay, it's hungry. Yeah. And that's what happens with the business.
Yeah. Do you have a process for making decisions?
Wow.
Do you isolate yourself and meditate or feel into it? I'm curious.
Yeah, that's a great, I don't have a process, but I do, if it's a big decision, I require space. Yeah. So after our first viral video, Girls Don't Poop, we sold out all of our inventory, and within 2 days, we were $4 million in back order. We didn't have sprayers on order. There's a 16-week lead time. There's this whole drama story, and that I wasn't going to be able to ship product for 6 months. There was nobody else in the world that sells these sprayers. I'd taken all these people's money, $4 million. I was going to have to give it back because I couldn't ship the goods. And I was everybody was mad at me, hated us. So I sent out an email and said, we got caught with our pants down. I was truly transparent. It was true. Wow. I didn't expect this. I'll give you money back if you want it. But I didn't know what I was going to do. So I wasn't sleeping at all. I was just answering thousands of emails, trying to find this inventory to make the goods. And I wasn't going to be able to ship for 6 months. The sprayer manufacturer, which we're like a pinhead and the size of business they have, right? Kept saying no every time we emailed them or talked with them. So I'm not sleeping. So at 2 a.m., I just go into meditation and I just sit. And I literally sit for a couple of hours, and all of a sudden, like it just comes in. And I was like, oh, I get on LinkedIn. I message the CEO of that sprayer company. And I said, I have 48 hours before I have to be at a trade show. I'm going to buy the first flight. I'm going to sit in your office, and I want you to see me. And I understand you can't help my company, but I want you to look me in the eyes, and I want you to tell me face to face that you can't help my company, because I want you to know my company's going down. And if you can't, that's fair enough. But I don't want this through email. I want face-to-face contact. So I get to the airport, I email him, I got the first flight, I land at 10 o'clock, I'll be in your office by 11. And I get a call from his global senior VP of whatever, international sales. And I'm just crying, and I'm like, well, I'll lose my company, and he says, first of all, we got your message. Don't come because the CEO is traveling internationally and I'm not even based in the city, right? He goes, but trust me, we're going to help you. So they ended up through a process. They ended up seeding me 100,000 sprayers. They stole from one of the biggest companies in the world to keep my company alive.
Wow.
Yeah. But that idea came through when I stopped and I just sat. So yeah, my process is when the crazier things are, the more you need to just stop and sit.
It's great insight. There's so much noise everywhere. So
everywhere.
Disconnecting
and it's the
from the
hardest
noise
thing to do.
Tapping within is powerful.
Oh man, and trust me, everything in you wants to run, right? And I ran for a couple weeks till there was no more running. And then it was like, yeah, it's like stop and create space.
Excellent advice. Suzy, I want to ask you a few colorful questions before we wrap up this interview. So one colorful question, I think this is an obvious one. What else turns you on?
I love experiences, right? So if you come have dinner with me, which you should if you come to Dallas, come on.
Love to.
We can order takeout, but we're going to have candles. We're going to have little tarot cards and read. I love creating experiences no matter where I'm at, what I'm doing. So that turns me on a lot. It doesn't matter where we're at. If we're in the middle of a park, we're going to have a blanket. We're going to have books. I'm going to create an experience at the park. So that's what turns me on. Because I know that things go away, but experiences don't.
I like it. I like the detail and the nuance that is involved with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll remember it.
Yeah. Question number 2 that I have for you. So I have a brand called Kindfluence, and I do trainings with Kindfluence, mostly in terms of communication. But I love asking my guests, what is a kind touch that you love to implement or love to do? Whether it's within the workplace or within people you interact with in your life.
A kind touch. I believe I'm a great gift giver because I think about people and I create that. I don't just buy things for things. I will get you something because it sparked a memory when I was there and I'll pick it up and give it to you. So I do that a lot within people within my life, and they're always super touched by it. So I think that's it. I also believe in bringing out whatever great quality that person has and reminding them, of what I see. Because we don't often see, we show up so differently from what the internal voice is saying. So I love reminding people of their geniuses.
I think that's amazing. Can you give us an example or let us know how you did that? Because I think that'd be a valuable thing for all of us to use and practice.
Gosh, I just had an employee that I just fired, and he replied back, "Here's my genius." And I said, "I know that that's what you think your genius is, but based on my experience with you, this is actually what your genius is. And I know that because I see how turned on you are doing it. So in your next position, this is what you need to be looking for. And as a matter of fact, I want to hire you as a contractor to do this thing that I know turns you on, even though I just fired you."
That's amazing. That's great.
Because I want to support that in the world, not support him doing something that wasn't in his genius.
I think that's really cool because you also were willing to see more of the picture than just the problem in regards to, him not doing the job the way that you wanted it to. But we're more than just one thing like that.
Yeah. It's it's obvious what turns him on.
Yeah.
And we need it in the company. So how about your first gig is right here again?
That is...
and he's doing it.
Yeah. That is amazing. The next question I wanted to ask you is in regards to self-promotion, because I know it was something we were talking a little bit about before we turned the mics and cameras on. And that is that, you're not a huge fan of self-promotion. And I think that is a real thing for some. Some people love the opportunity to have their soapbox, but I'm kind of curious to know as to why.
Yeah, so my team, I fought my team for many years. They've wanted me, it'd be good for the brand if you get out there. People want to know your story, and I was like, no, 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 no. It's not about me, it's about the product. And I didn't realize the internal resistance that I had. Number one, it's there's a vulnerability and I'm exposed, right? It's much easier to hide behind a brand. When I was young, I was so shy that when someone would ring the doorbell, I would go hide under the kitchen table. And I remember JP Sears asked me, he said, so is Poo Pourri now your kitchen table? It's like, yeah, it was. So I was really hiding behind the brand. But then another layer of that, for 12 years as I've been developing this company, my prayer has been, show me why. Show me what this all is about. Because the story is too ridiculous. I'm making all this money off of poop spray. Like, it's kind of a cosmic joke. I mean, seriously, it's like, really? Come on, this is like something out of a weird movie. And what I wanted to do is find an authentic place within myself of where I could share the story of service, not as in a look what I did, but more, here's what happened and here's how, and it may help you. Yeah, I get a little teary with that because, and that's the only place I want to promote is that this has really nothing to do with me. Because if I can do it, the trajectory of my story, like if that's possible, are you kidding me? Like, what can you do? That's it. Like, I'm not smart. I'm not special. Like, there's nothing. It's just literally what's happened. And if I can do it, I know you can do it. People that have had more tools, more opportunity, more, it's like, come on, like you can do this, but it's doing a backflip down inside yourself and quit flipping out, wondering what everybody wants you to do. So that's where, and JP Sears is my coach on this, that's where I found an authentic place of where I want to actually serve is by just merely sharing my story only so that it can spark something within someone else that they can go, oh, hold on. There's something within me, that can shift or change. But to self-promote myself, I don't want that nor need it in my life.
Yeah, I can relate because there's sometimes when I feel such resistance to self-promoting. And I think there's a lot of self-promoters out there that do tell themselves the story that this is all about giving and they can get away with it, whether it kind of strokes their ego and makes them feel good at the same time too. Cool, I guess, and as long as they're not only doing it to stroke their ego and they don't actually care about other people. I just know that in your heart, that's not who you are. And sometimes I wonder if I'm just stroking my own ego. And I think I sometimes feel shame around that. And that causes, I guess, disalignment for me. So it's something that I'm practicing as well, self-promotion and owning everything, owning who I am and not doing disclaimers, or just being like adding in humility just because I feel like, okay, it brings me back down to earth. And just as a reflection to you, like, I think you are incredibly smart and incredibly special. So I get that, why you said that in that example. And I just have a different impression of you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I struggled in school and it's really an area where like I feel teary right now. I was never smart. And that's something. So thank you for sharing that with me.
My pleasure. I never thought that I was smart because I thought all the things that made sense to me were obvious to everybody.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's actually the case.
Yeah.
Last question of this part of the interview is you've had such an incredible roller coaster, incredible life. I mean, you're certainly living. I'm curious to know what you're most proud of yourself about.
Oh, wow. I often tell people I'm most proud of, I'm a master of transition. and transformation. I just took my family from a 26-year marriage through could have been a lot of drama. There's money, there's a lot of stuff that would be involved in a scandal, episode. I don't know what even scandal. I was just talking to somebody earlier, but you know what I'm saying? Like there's a lot that could have happened. And it could have been very juicy. And I'm most proud that my children say they feel like the luckiest children of parents of divorce. And so I'm most proud that I know somehow how to transition from the depths of despair of second bankruptcy, to losing what I thought was everything, to bliss, to transitioning my family from, this 26-year very tight family that spent, down in the jungle of ayahuasca together. That's how tight we were, to now being this separate units. Like, I'm proud of how I've transitioned life. Yeah, that's what I'm most proud of.
Awesome.
It has nothing to do with business.
Yeah, no, well, it sounds like a whole book right there. It's incredible and so inspiring.
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
I just felt a little deep.
Yeah. So as we wrap this up, what can we do to support you?
Oh, wow. What a great question. If you heard an alive idea, feel it within yourself and share it with someone, to light that spark within another person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. I like that. And then on a business level, I can guess that, if you have a partner or maybe yourself, a little stinky in the bathroom.
Oh, yeah.
Get some Poo Pourri.
Yeah, you can buy that too.
And I'm really excited to test out your supernatural products.
Oh,
the home cleaning, all natural products, because I had someone here at my house cleaning the house a couple of weeks ago, and they were using some really chemically thing where literally for hours after they left, my house smelled like chemicals. And I'm like, I don't want to be breathing that in. So I'm really excited to check out your supernatural product. So supernatural.com is that one. And that site was pretty arousing for me.
Isn't it?
It's good.
Bunch of naked people cleaning, clean but naked.
That's good. It was too easy, so I had to go there.
Yeah, thank you.
So as we close this out, any last words of wisdom, inspiration, encouragement you have for listeners of Are You Being Real? Maybe something you were thinking about as you were flying to LA or driving over here this morning, or while you were awake in the middle of the night because the alarm went off in the hotel.
Oh my gosh. No, it's just, it's that whole cliche of life's short, go inside, do whatever you got to do, take that week vacation you haven't taken, go sit out in the forest, sit wherever, sit in your home, and just feel into what do you really want to do and what turns you on. And when you get on that wave, just, God, go for it. That's it. Just go for it. Because you'll never, ever, ever regret it. Ever. Even if it doesn't work, which it's going to. But if it doesn't, you're going to, you'll fall off the wave maybe, but you'll be glad you rode, right?
Mic drop. The one and only Suzy Batiz. This was so fun. You are welcome back anytime. Thanks for being so incredibly inspiring, authentic, and real. You rock.
Thank you. You too.